Welcome to Screenwriting 101. I'm William Akers. I'm a writer, teacher, and writing consultant. I've got more than 20 years experience at all three, and I've given notes on thousands of screenplays. In Screenwriting 101, you'll learn how to format a screenplay, not about story and structure or how to write dialogue, but how to write a page that looks like a professional wrote it. Believe me, a reader can tell a lot from reading your very first page. Since the dawn of talkies, screenplays have looked the same because what you're writing is meant to be produced. The director, casting director, assistant director, script supervisor, cinematographer, production designer, every head of department will break your script down to gather information as they move through pre-production into production. Every script has to be formatted the same. First things first, you can write a screenplay in Microsoft Word, but we highly encourage you to buy screenwriting software instead. Formatting a screenplay manually is a nightmare. A screenwriting software will save you a lot of time and headache. There are free options out there, but they are not totally reliable. The industry standard Final Draft will make your life 1,000 times easier, and you can use it to write all your scripts forever. A little later, my business partner, Hillary, will use Final Draft to teach you screenplay format. As you go through this video, take notes. Pause anytime you need to so you can catch up. This information is too dense and too important for you to absorb it by just watching. Let's talk about the basics. 1. Screenplays are written in the present tense. Beginning writers sometimes default to past tense. That's a mistake. Always present. 2. Because a script page correlates to approximately 1 minute of screen time, a feature script should not be longer than 110 pages. If you're writing a novel, it can be as long as you want. You don't have that luxury when you write a script. When a reader opens your script, first thing they'll do is see how many pages it is. If it's over 110, they get worried. Most scenes are a half page to a page. A 4-page scene is long. 3. Read a lot of scripts so you'll understand what a screenplay page looks like. When a producer picks up your script, you don't want how the pages look to tell them you're a beginner. 4. Everything in action description must be something you can see on screen. This means you can't tell us what a character is thinking about unless it's a scene or an actor says it in dialogue. Always ask yourself, can a camera see this? If the answer is no, it won't work. 5. Don't worry about including camera angles in your script. If you're not the director, camera angles are not your job. 6. No specific music references. If the reader's not familiar with the song you're naming, then what? Also, the producer may get nervous because that song could be expensive. Only tell us how the music feels. 7. Don't include images. No drawings, maps, or photographs, just words. Only write your script in 12-point Courier, Courier Regular, or Final Draft Courier, not in Courier New. If you have Final Draft, it will set up your margins correctly. If you're doing it on your own, make sure your left margin is at 1.5 inches. When you print your script, this leaves room for the 2 brads that hold the pages together, and make sure the reader sees everything at the beginning of your action description. A narrower margin cuts off parts of words. Lastly, because it has a great deal of information about formatting, I highly recommend my book, Your Screenplay Sucks. It will keep you well out of trouble. To get you started, my business partner, Hillary, a gifted writer who's read hundreds of screenplays for her jobs at talent agencies and production companies, will walk you through Final Draft setup and the basics of screenwriting.
Hi, I'm Hillary. Let's get Final Draft set up so you're ready to write your screenplay. I'll start by walking you through some important settings, and then I'll teach you the main elements of a screenplay and how to format your script in Final Draft. For this demonstration, I'll be using Final Draft 12. If you have a different version, your screen may look slightly different than mine, but the directions will be the same. The first thing you'll do after downloading Final Draft is open the program. From the Welcome window, select Choose Template. You'll want to either select Screenplay or Screenplay Warner Brothers. Screenplay is the industry standard and is what most screenwriters use. William prefers Screenplay Warner Brothers because the dialogue margins are narrower and it forces him to be more concise in his writing. When you've selected the template you want to use, click New. You will now see a blank, untitled screenplay document on your screen. Final Draft has three main parts you need to know for this demonstration: the menu bar at the top of your computer screen, the toolbar at the top of the document, and the page where you'll write your screenplay. If, for some reason, the window to select a template did not show up when you open Final Draft, you can choose the template by clicking File in the menu bar and selecting New from Template in the drop-down menu. The template choices will appear, and you will select Screenplay or Screenplay Warner Brothers. When you're ready, press New. Before you start writing, let's take a moment to be sure all your settings are correct. The first thing to do is confirm you are using the right font. In the menu bar, click Format, and in the drop-down menu, hover over Font. Scroll down to confirm that Courier Final Draft is selected. Although they seem similar, never use Courier New. Now, let's talk about dialogue breaks and scene breaks. In the menu bar, click Document, then click Mores and Continueds. A pop-up window will open. Dialogue breaks occur when a character is talking and their line of dialogue continues from the bottom of one page onto the top of the next page. Here's an example from the script for the film Fingernails. As you can see, Leanne's dialogue is split between the bottom of one page and the top of the next. When this happens, you want to make it clear for the reader that your character isn't finished speaking yet and that their dialogue continues. The correct way to do this is to have more in parentheses at the bottom of the page and continued in parentheses next to the character's name on the following page. Final Draft will handle this for you automatically if your settings are correct. To do this, under Dialogue Breaks, make sure the boxes next to bottom of page and top of next page are selected. Automatic character continueds are added when a character's dialogue is split up by action description. In other words, a character speaks, something happens, and then the same character speaks. Here's an example from some dialogue that we wrote for this demonstration. As you can see, Samantha speaks, she holds up her hand, and then she speaks again. If automatic character continueds are turned on, continued will be added in parentheses next to Samantha's name the second time she speaks. Having character continueds is optional, but we think it's obvious that the same character is speaking, and having the continueds clutter the page, so we prefer to take them off. To do this, unselect the box next to automatic character continueds. Like dialogue breaks, scene breaks occur when a scene continues from one page on to the next. Signaling to the reader that the scene continues on the following page is not necessary in your draft. We recommend that the boxes next to bottom of page, top of next page, and continued are unselected. When you're ready, click OK. Alrighty then, on to the next step. This one is about setting up the page. In the menu bar, click Document, then click Page Layout, and then click the Options tab. First, make sure line spacing is set to normal. Then, unselect the box that says Enable Smart Quotes. When you're ready, click OK. Next up, revision information. As you write, Final Draft will automatically add revision information to the top of your script page. This is most commonly used in production, and you don't need to worry about it while you're writing your first draft. Here's an example from the script for Top Gun Maverick. The revision information is at the top of every page. To remove it, in the menu bar, click Document. In the drop-down, click Header and Footer. A pop-up window will open. In the Header tab, you'll see where it says Collated Revisions in the middle of the window. Place your cursor to the right of the box around Collated Revisions, click, and press Delete on your keyboard. Before closing the window, make sure page number is still visible on the right side. When you're done, click OK. You are now all set up and ready to begin writing. I'll switch over to a live demonstration to teach you about the elements of a screenplay and how to write your own pages using Final Draft. Now that you've finished setting up your document, it's time to talk about screenplay format. This is a good time to save your project. We recommend saving it with the title, Draft A, and the date. As you work on rewrites, having and updating this information will help you keep track of your drafts. If you're unsure what you want to call your movie, you can give it a working title, which is a temporary title, or call it something like Untitled Cowboy Movie. For the purpose of this demonstration, Let's pretend we're writing a movie called Cattle Drive. It's a good idea to create a folder for each of your screenwriting projects to save all of your drafts in the same place. Congratulations! You are now officially working on a screenplay. The first thing you'll do is create your title page. In Final Draft, click the title page icon in the toolbar at the top of your document. This will open the template for your title page. It looks pretty straightforward, but let's go over the information you need to know. First, you will highlight where it says Script Title and replace that with the title of your screenplay. Note that the title of your script should be written in all caps. It's then up to you whether or not you want your title to be underlined. Moving on, you will see Written By. The Writers Guild recognizes Written By as the credit belonging to writers who wrote both the story and the screenplay. Story refers to the idea and the associated materials like treatments or outlines. Screenplay refers to the script itself. If you're writing an original screenplay based on your original ideas and materials, Written By applies to you. If your script is based on work that someone else created or helped you create, they would get Story By credit. If someone else came up with a story idea and materials, but you're writing the screenplay, you get Screenplay By credit. Does this sound complicated? It can be. Let's look at Top Gun Maverick again. The title page has 7 writers credited for Based on Characters Created By, Story By, and Screenplay By. Here, Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. wrote the original Top Gun script, so they're credited for creating some of the characters in Top Gun Maverick. Peter Craig and Justin Marks worked on creating the story for the film, and Aaron Kruger, Eric Warren Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie wrote the screenplay. The Writers Guild has rules about who receives credit on a screenplay and how that credit is assigned. Typically, credits for scripts with multiple writers will be determined through arbitration, but that's way more detail than you need. For now, it's most important to know Written By, Story By, and Screenplay By. For this example, let's keep it simple and say that you're writing an original script based on your own original story idea. That means you use Written By. Under Written By, add your first and last name. If you're part of a writing team, put an ampersand after your name, followed by the second writer's name on the same line as your name. This means that you wrote the script together. If you write the word "and" between your names, it means that the first writer wrote the original draft and the second writer was hired separately to rewrite it. If you're basing your script on pre-existing material like a novel or short story or other intellectual property, put that information where it says based on, if any. If you're writing completely original material, you can erase that line. Moving down, your contact information should be at the very bottom of the page. If for some reason it's moved up a couple lines, press return until your phone number is on the very last line again. Where it says address, write your email address. No need to add a street address. You also don't need to write email before your email address. Everyone knows what that is without the label. Where it says phone number, write your phone number. But don't just write the digits. Use parentheses or dashes or periods to break up the number. Remember, you want to make it as easy as possible for the person who likes your script to read and dial your number. When your contact information is complete, highlight both lines and change the alignment so that they're on the right side of the page. Printed scripts are bound on the left side, often with a cardstock cover. You don't want your contact information getting cut off or being difficult to read. Moving it to the right ensures that the reader can see it properly. As you're working on drafts, we also recommend adding the date to your title page. When it comes time to share your script with someone like an agent, producer, manager, etc., however, take the date off. You never know how long a script will float around before the right person reads it. If they see that a script is 1 or 2 or 5 years old, they could assume that if it was any good, someone would have made it already. If there's no date, however, they can't tell you wrote it a few years ago. Since this is my working draft, I'll leave the date on the title page for now. This is all the information that belongs on your title page. Very simple. No weird fonts, no images, no graphics, no maps. Also, we recommend not putting any copyright information or WGA script registration numbers on your title page. The reader will assume you registered your script with the Writers Guild. They may assume you copyrighted it. Having this information might make you look paranoid, and no one wants to work with a paranoid writer. Similarly, don't include a watermark on your script. That's something the producer will do if they deem it necessary. When you're being paid a fortune to write a top-secret Marvel movie, someone will handle the watermarking for you. Otherwise, don't watermark your script. When you're all done, you can click the button on the top right that says Close Title Page. All of the information will be saved automatically. Okay, now it is time to start writing your screenplay. I'll go over the various elements of a well-constructed screenplay page and script format. Screenplay format is easy once you get the hang of it, especially if you're using Final Draft, but it seems complicated if you've never done it before. Before we begin, remember, a screenplay should not be longer than 110 pages. That's a lot of story to fit into a small space. You should not, however, cram every page full of words. Write tightly and concisely so that there's a good amount of white space on each page. When an agent or producer sees a properly formatted page with the right amount of white space, they are happier to read your script than if your page is solid words. Let's look at some quick examples to show you what I mean. Without worrying about the words themselves, let's just talk about how a screenplay page should look. Each screenplay is made up of different elements: action, scene headings, dialogue, parentheticals, etc. With a few exceptions, each page should look like a balance of all of these. In this first example, we see 2 lines of action description at the top, followed by huge chunks of dialogue. You might have a scene or two that looks like this in your script, especially if one of your characters gives a long speech, but if all of your pages look like this, your script is too dialogue heavy. In example 2, we see lots of action. Pages that look like this are overwhelming to the reader. If you have scenes with a lot of action, try to break it up so that each paragraph is no more than 4 lines. This makes it more manageable for the person reading your script. The third example shows a good balance between action description and dialogue. Notice how much more white space there is on this page than on the others. This page will be easier to get through, and the reader can tell just from a glance that the writer knows what they're doing. So, with those visuals in mind, let's head back to Final Draft to talk about writing your script. The first thing to know is that every scene starts with a scene heading or a slug line. A slug line begins in 2 ways, either EXT, meaning exterior, or INT, meaning interior. Then put a period followed by a space. Next, write the name of your location. This could be something like Jennifer's house or a grocery store. For the sake of this example, let's say the characters are at a place called Stockman's Bar. After the location, you put a space, a dash, and another space before writing whether it's day or night. Sometimes you'll see writers be slightly more specific with things like morning, dusk, evening, etc., but try to stick to day and night as much as you can. A slug line should be written in all caps. Final Draft will recognize you're writing a slug line when you write INT or EXT, and the program will handle the capitalization for you. You can confirm Final Draft knows what type of element you're writing by looking at the drop-down menu in the middle of the toolbar at the top of the page. Here, you can see it says Scene Heading. Watch what happens when you've finished writing your slug line and press Return. See how the element changes to action? Action is what the audience will see on the screen. Every scene you write will have a slug line followed by a couple lines of scene description in the action. The scene description will tell us what the setting looks like and which characters are present. Remember, this isn't a novel, so don't spend pages and pages going into every detail. Give the reader just enough to picture the scene. You'll notice that sometimes in a screenplay, it's not even necessary to write incomplete sentences. These details tell us enough. Just make sure that everything you're writing is clear. In this example, you'll see that country radio is capitalized. That's because it's a sound effect. Anytime there's a noise in your script, you'll write it in all caps. Once you've described the setting, you'll write more action lines about what the characters in the scene are doing. Try not to have your paragraphs be longer than 4 lines. Breaking the scene into smaller chunks helps the reader. When we see a character for the first time on screen, write their name in all caps. If they're background or minor characters with 0 or very few speaking lines, they'll get a description instead of a name, like bouncer or policeman, or in this case, locals. Because a reader has trouble keeping track of more than about 10 names, you want to reserve specific names for important characters. Here, there's no reason to give all the people at the bar names, because they're just background characters. When you do introduce a central character, give them a name in all caps, an age or age range, and a brief character description. There are several ways to write character descriptions. Here is one of them. We'll cover character introductions in more detail in the course. When you see these characters later in the scene or script, there's no need to keep writing their name in all caps in action. Only do this the first time we see them. Once you've written some action lines and you're ready to add dialogue, press Return and then Tab. See how the element in the toolbar changes from action to character? That means you'll now write the speaking character's name. The character element should always be in all caps. Final Draft will handle this for you automatically. The character element is followed by dialogue, so after you've written the character's name, press Return, and Final Draft will automatically format the next line for dialogue. See how the element in the toolbar now says dialogue? When you finish writing your dialogue, press Return. Final Draft will default back to action. If that's what you want, keep typing. If you want more dialogue from another character, press Tab and write the new speaking character's name. If you want to switch between elements, pressing Return twice will bring up a drop-down menu of elements, and you can choose the element you want from there. Final Draft will help you keep everything formatted correctly, but if it makes a mistake, highlight the line you want to change, click the Elements drop-down in the toolbar, and select the correct one. Now, you can keep writing the rest of your scene with a mix of action and dialogue. A couple more things to point out so far about this scene. First, see where dog tag and modest engagement ring are in all caps? That's because these are important props. You don't need to do this for every prop in your scenes, only use it for the ones that are most important to your story. Next, see the parentheses between Abigail's name and her line of dialogue? That's a parenthetical. Parentheticals are used to tell us how dialogue is delivered if it's not obvious from the dialogue itself. Here, if we didn't have the parenthetical, we might interpret the line to mean that the air conditioning is running in the bar. With the parenthetical, however, we know that she's being sarcastic, and we understand that the air conditioning is not running. Be careful, however. There is a tendency for writers to use too many parentheticals. This is distracting and can be frustrating for your actors. Only use them where you really, really need them. The delivery and meaning of your dialogue should be obvious from the dialogue itself in most cases. Also to be used sparingly, underlining. Underlining indicates emphasis on a certain word or words. For example, adding an underline to Hank's line changes it from anything you can do about it to anything you can do about it. Only add an underline if it's truly necessary. Otherwise, you should leave it up to your actors to decide how they want to deliver the lines. That is, after all, why they get paid the big bucks. Sometimes writers make the mistake of using all caps for emphasis instead of underlining. All caps in dialogue means that a character is yelling. If you want someone to shout their line of dialogue, put it in all caps. You don't need a parenthetical or an action line to tell us they're yelling. All caps in dialogue will do it. Here's what that would look like. When you've finished writing your scene and you're ready to start the next one, press Return and type INT or EXT. Final Draft should recognize that you're writing a slug line and automatically update the element to scene heading. If it doesn't, you can manually change the element by pressing Return twice to open the Elements menu, or select the element you want from the drop-down menu in the toolbar. Once you've written your slug line, give us a sentence or two of scene description, and off you go. Some writers like to put their slug lines in bold, so it's easier to see where new scenes begin. This is not required and is personal preference for the writer. a slug line is the only place it's acceptable to use bold in your script. Instead of going through and manually bolding your slug lines, Final Draft will do it for you if you update your settings. First, click Format in the menu bar at the top of your screen. From the drop-down menu, click Elements. When the pop-up window opens, highlight Scene Heading in the menu on the left. Click the Font tab and press the Set Font button. Next to Style, click the box that says Bold. You'll see the sample text at the bottom of the window. When it looks correct, press OK. We also recommend numbering your scenes. It's helpful to refer to a scene by its number when you're getting notes and rewriting. Here's how you turn those on. To add scene numbers, in the menu bar, click Production. Then click Scene Numbers. In the pop-up window, make sure that the box next to Number/Renumber is clicked and that Keep Existing Numbers is unclicked. Click OK. If you add or delete scenes along the way and want to renumber them, you follow this same process. A word to the wise as you're writing. Be sure to save your work often and in multiple places. We recommend printing your new pages every day so you have a hard copy in case your computer crashes. Sadly, it happens more often than you think. When you finish writing a complete draft and you're ready to share your script with other people for notes, remove the date from your title page and save your script as a PDF with the script's title and your name. After you get notes and you're ready to start a rewrite, save your Final Draft file as a new document with a new draft information and date. Save a new version for every rewrite. Never work on a rewrite in the original document. Sometimes you'll delete a scene that you want to put in again later. If you've deleted the scene in your only Final Draft doc, you'll have to retype the whole thing. Before we send you off to do your writing assignment, there are a few more common screenwriting conventions we think you should know: flashbacks, telephone calls, and montages. Let me pull up another example. Pretend this is a page in the middle of a script, so we've already met these characters. This scene continues from the page before, where the main character Ethan is driving his car at night. At the top of this page, we see that his phone rings. Notice the all caps for the sound effect. The name on the screen makes him think of something, but remember, this isn't a novel. An audience won't know what a character is thinking unless that character says it in dialogue or we see it on screen. Here, the name triggers a flashback scene, which helps us to see what's going on in Ethan's mind. As you look at more scripts, you'll see that different writers will format flashbacks slightly differently, but the most important thing is that the flashback is obvious to the reader. Otherwise, it can be incredibly confusing. We recommend writing flashback in all caps at the beginning of your scene heading and underlining it. Next, it's important to tell the reader when you're flashing back to. Is it yesterday? A year ago? To 1945? Here, we're flashing back to 5 days earlier. Notice that even though this scene happens in the past, the scene is still written in present tense. When you reach the end of the flashback, let the reader know the flashback is over. We recommend writing end flashback and underlining it at the end of your scene. Next, let's look at phone conversations. There are 2 ways to format phone conversations depending on what you want the audience to see on screen. The first way is to have one character on the screen and have the other character be somewhere else and only heard on the phone but not shown. You can see an example of this here. Ethan is on camera, but we only hear Nevada's voice. We know this because the parentheses next to her name says VO. VO stands for voiceover. You use it in places where we hear a character speak, but they're not in the same location. Examples of this include phone conversations, radio or TV broadcasts, and narration from a narrator or another character. As a side note, if a character is in the same room and speaks, but they're not on camera, you would use a parentheses next to their name that says OS for off-screen. But what about phone conversations where you want to show both characters talking and cut back and forth between them? Let's keep going and I'll show you. In cases where you want to show both ends of a phone conversation, you begin by establishing each character in their location. Here, we see a scene with Ethan in his car. We then see a new scene, notice the slugline and scene description, that establishes Nevada's location. Then, in all caps, we write intercut phone conversation. This signals to the reader that we will cut back and forth between the two characters. When Ethan is talking, we'll see Ethan. When Nevada is talking, we'll see Nevada. The conversation ends when one of them hangs up. As we move into the next scene, let's talk about montages. Montages are used to show a series of images that imply a passing of time or a long process like falling in love or training for something. Often when people say montage, what they actually mean is a series of shots. Series of shots show things that happen quickly in chronological order. Both are formatted similarly, so here's a series of shots that takes place in one location. First, write series of shots in all caps, followed by a brief description of what happens in each shot. Here's an example. Notice that here we use OS in parentheses because the woman on the other side of the door is not seen by the camera, but she's in the same location, unlike earlier when Nevada was speaking on the telephone, but was in a different location. There are a lot of different ways to format montages and series of shots depending on if there is one or multiple locations, how much time passes, etc. Our recommendation is to think of scenes that are similar to the one you want to write and try to find the screenplays for those movies to use as an example. That wraps up our lesson on screenplay format and segues very nicely into your Screenwriting 101 writing assignment. When you take Screenwriting Essentials, after every lesson, you'll have a writing assignment. Here's your first one. Pick 3 of your favorite screenwriters or movies and type up 3 pages from each of their scripts. Do it exactly like they do. This will be harder to execute than you think, and it will teach you a lot about screenplay format. Do that well, and you'll be ready for Screenwriting Essentials. It's been a pleasure to teach you the basics of screenwriting. Now, back to William.
Thanks, Hillary. You know what a screenplay page looks like and how to type pages that look right. Time to learn how to write content that will look right and be right. The 10 Screenwriting Essentials lessons will carry you from story idea all the way through writing a well-constructed first draft of a feature screenplay with a superb story and finely developed characters. Screenwriting Essentials is a soup-to-nuts series of professional lessons to help you on your journey from blank page to fade out in the most effective way possible. Hillary and I are thrilled to have you on board and look forward to helping you get your script written. Good luck with the writing exercises. I look forward to showing you the ins and outs of screenwriting in Screenwriting Essentials. Thank you.